Batolayo badala ngothando lwami ngisize ube impendulo yami ngoba uthando lungehlule thando lungehlule mama Ngibone ngithemba umuntu Phinda ungibone ngithanda umuntu Ngithi phinda ungibone ngithanda umuntu Phinda ungibone ngithemba umuntu Phinda ungibone ngithatha ithemba lami ngilibeka kumuntu wasemhlabeni ngabathanda bonke kodwa ungathembi noyedwa noma umthanda umuntu thanda ubuyele nganene ngoba umuntu akuyena wakini umuntu okujikele mini thatha kimi le ndlela ngiyayazi mina ngihambile isothandweni lawo nendabuko nelimele vula amehlo vala inhliziyo semhlabeni lana gcwele ilingo kwase kwashona ilanga mama funana nothando lwangempela engibatholayo badala ngothando lwami ngisize ube impendulo yami ngoba uthando lungehlule thando lungehlule mama
There's Java coming through with Utando, beautiful song, and I think probably going to go down as one of his classics. But yet again, he just manages to write really good music and then put together a fantastic production. He had a wonderful spontaneous moment on social media on Valentine's Day, and he just woke up and he solicited his fans to send through the phone numbers of their partners, and then he would call their partners on Valentine's Day and serenade them. It was very interesting to see the gentleman's responses to that request, at least the public responses to that request. A lot of them were rather reluctant. And then a few of them actually took him up on the offer, and he was busy the whole day. I think his last phone call on Valentine's Day was around about 11 p.m. That was, at least judging from what he was communicating on social media, that was the last phone call that he made to serenade a deserving young or old lady, who knows. I hope you had a great day yesterday. It was, a bit bittersweet to be away from you. I was in Cape Town doing some TV work that side. And I must admit that while I was there, I see this morning the news, it's trending that fire on the mountain right now, because Table Mountain is actually up in flames, and there's quite the hurried and focused effort to ensure that that fire gets contained. And yesterday when I was leaving, making my way back to the airport early evening, you could see those, those sort of signs of smoke and fire, and feel just a fraction of the heat, and at least on the side where I was. And so hopefully whatever sparked the fire, I haven't really tracked the story, but hopefully whatever sparked the fire has been subdued, and they've got that under control, because we know what it's like when that mountain sort of catches on, in full flame. It can cause a lot of damage, not just to the fauna and the flora around it, but also to the infrastructure and the homes in that vicinity. So hopefully all those efforts will bear fruit to just contain it before it gets even bigger. On the show today, we're reflecting on an opinion piece, and this one was penned in the IOL, Raising Consciousness and Forging Unity Amongst Black South Africans, a Path to Collective Liberation. We're going to be in a conversation with political economist Ndube on this one. And then we're also going to be catching up with the folks over the Organic and Natural Products Expo Africa, which is happening. We're going to touch base with SA Trade on that and find out, what that all entails. On the other side of 2 o'clock, because it is Wednesday and it's Relationship Wednesday, we're looking at how toxic in-laws can destroy marriages. Well, this should be interesting, giving you an opportunity to also ventilate some of your personal stories and experiences here. And you can do so in the confidence of being anonymous, because it can be a very sensitive and touchy subject. But I think for the most part, a lot of people have actually had experiences with toxic in-laws, whether you're talking mother-in-laws, father-in-laws, siblings-in-laws that just have some sort of negativity and toxicity that they bring into your relationship. We'd love to hear from you. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. You can send those WhatsApps anonymously. You don't need to say who you are. We'll respect your need for privacy on this matter. So 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. Let's take a quick break and then we'll be right back.
With Ford's Blue Sky offers, get a new Ranger XL from just $5,899 per month, including our optional service plan, only when financed through Ford Credit. 10% deposit, prime list 4.75%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford Family Guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. Ford Credit is a registered credit provider and an authorized financial services provider. T&Cs apply.
Meet TJ, the magician. Well, he isn't quite the magician, but shame, let's call him that. The other day he tried to do that coin ear trick. Poor Owami is still in the hospital with a 5 Rand coin stuck in his ear. He tried getting his pit bull, Mufasa, to levitate. Oh, he got that right. But now Mufasa is levitating through Tembisa, and somehow TJ forgot to read the section on how to get Mufasa back down. It's tough being a magician, but luckily for TJ, Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician will be the perfect inspiration for him to be the best magician in Tembisa. Catch Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SAFM would like to thank everyone that submitted their entries for the playwriting competition. The announcement of the top 10 and winners of the competition will be announced on the 3rd of March 2025 on The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana. Stay tuned to SAFM and find out who is the lucky winner. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
All right, let's talk TV licenses. Did you know that paying your TV license isn't just about the legalities of it all? It also helps fund local productions and creates jobs in the entertainment industry. So that means more epic dramas, exciting sports, and news that keep us informed. So when was the last time you checked yours? You can visit www.tvlice, that's TVI, or rather TVLIC, tvlice.co.za, and make sure you're up to date. After all, it's your screen, your story. Hashtag your screens, your story.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, time for us to catch up with Ngo Dube, who's a political economist, a businessman, and social commentator on the back of an opinion piece that was penned in the IOL entitled Raising Consciousness and Forging Unity Amongst Black South Africans, A Path to Collective Liberation. And so we know that South Africa's history is a testament to the resilience and strength of its people, particularly its black majority, who endured centuries of colonial oppression, apartheid, and systemic exploitation. And yet, despite the formal end of apartheid in 1994, the legacy of racial inequality and economic exclusion persists. Black South Africans continue to bear the brunt of poverty, unemployment, and systemic marginalization. Whilst political freedom was achieved, economic freedom remains elusive. And this reality underscores the urgent need to raise consciousness and forge unity amongst black people in South Africa. And these are the words of Ngo Dube. How are you doing this afternoon?
Oh, Bridget, how are you? I'm good, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for the time. We appreciate it. We appreciate it indeed. Let's talk about, I guess, the entry point, right, is understanding how South Africa's historical context calls for what you say is the urgent need to raise consciousness and forge unity amongst Black people. Walk us through that.
I think first of all, Bridget, maybe it will help if we understand what consciousness is, so that we can understand.
I was gonna get to that. That was the follow-up, but we can start there.
Sorry. Consciousness is the awareness of one's identity, history, and systematic forces that shape one's reality.
Yeah.
It's very important because it empowers individuals to challenge oppression, to challenge the status quo, and any circumstance that they find themselves in as a people. It also builds pride in their identity and in their history, and fosters a sense of collective purpose and a shared destiny. That shared destiny and the sense of collective purpose is then what shapes that community to be able to stand up as a unit to fight against whatever circumstance they find themselves facing.
Okay. And I was really going to ask you to say, because when we speak about, raising the consciousness, what are you focusing on in your train of thinking? Because I understand a consciousness and how someone else understands what consciousness could be completely different things. Even if we're talking around racial consciousness, around sort of cultural consciousness, we can understand it from different perspectives, and with that then means we don't necessarily have the same conversation.
Yeah, what I had in mind, Bridget, was I liked when you read the opening of the opinion piece, that while political freedom was achieved in 1994, economic freedom remains very elusive for a lot of us. And we seem to be stuck that we achieved 1994, and then what else after that? The next logical step would have been economic freedom. But for the past 30 years, we've been stuck. And one of the main reasons why we've been stuck is because of a lack of unity, the inferiority complex that comes with centuries of oppression through colonialism and decades of apartheid. So that consciousness is then needed to overcome that psychological barrier first, and to allow us to overcome all this disunity that was ingrained in us through colonialism and apartheid, the tribal dynamics and all of that, so that we can then rise up and form a unit that can then challenge the next step in our freedom, which is economic freedom. That is what I had in mind.
Is this something that one is able to sort of awaken the spirit of amongst South Africans, particularly, and I guess in this conversation we speak particularly amongst the unity and consciousness of Black South Africans? Is this something that one is able to do, given now where we see those cracks that you guard and caution against are really starting to cement themselves and take root to some degree?
Yes, you definitely can. We can start by reclaiming our history, Bridget, and our identity. That starts by celebrating Black heroes, something as routine as that. We need to, every day in schools, in our conversations, to be celebrating uYimfa, uShaka Zulu, uMakhanda, uCetshwayo, uRobert Sobukwe, uMandela, uBiko, njalo njalo. Recognizing there is another way is to recognize the resilience. We are extremely a resilient people. We've overcome a lot of things, yet we do not seem to recognize and acknowledge that about ourselves. And also use the creativity that Black communities have in abundance and channel it into almost a revolutionary tool that can unite us and show us the strength that we have as a people.
And when you speak about that sort of reawakening the consciousness, right, in the piece as well, you highlight that it involves reclaiming one's history and one's identity and agency and recognizing the systemic forces that shape one's reality. Consciousness is the foundation upon which unity and collective action are built. It empowers the individual to challenge the status quo, demand justice, and work towards a better future. And obviously the things that you list there are things that I think many South Africans, we grapple with, even though we don't want to admit to ourselves, that we grapple with the idea of challenging a status quo. We grapple with sort of the idea and the concept of power, and how that all comes into play. And I wonder then, what becomes sort of the next layer and the next chapter in order to be able to get to this collective actions that you're talking about?
I think it's understanding, Bridget, the power of consciousness, what it brings to us. That consciousness is not just an abstract idea or an intellectual debate, but it's something we need to live by on a daily basis, consciously so. By having pride in the things that I've already mentioned, and also taking steps in highlighting and sort of always amplifying black achievement and black intellectualism and black progress, because there's a lot of progressive things that have come out of black intellectualism, but they are not amplified. They are not celebrated the way the world celebrates the rest of accomplishments and innovation by other races. It's up to us to then consciously raise that consciousness about ourselves, about our communities, about our achievements, and above everything else, about our resilience that we have so much in abundance of, that we've demonstrated over the years.
Before we go even further in our conversation, I know, because we encourage different perspectives and different opinions on the station and on this show in particular, for as long as those debates are presented in a respectful manner for everybody that's involved, right? I know as we sit, there is a healthy amount of folks who listen to the show when we have conversations that are skewed towards a particular awakening for blackness, that will say, but why must this conversation be centered around blackness? Why can't we be speaking about the collective consciousness of a rainbow nation South Africa? What would your response be to such folks?
It's because, Bridget, blackness has been relegated to the margins of society for a very long time. And it's about time that everyone that cares about humanity acknowledge that and actually became an ally and supports this awakening we are talking about, and be a player in making sure that black people are given the agency, are given the space to be able to forge their path in society. That will resonate with their identity, their collective culture, and their collective progress and place in the world. So it's not that we are dividing and saying black people are a special people amongst all races. It's the recognition that history, it's fact, that black people have been marginalized so much from the times of slavery, colonialism, apartheid, etc., that we need to face up to these inconvenient truths in order for us to overcome them. Because if we ignore them, it's been 30 years since we've been stuck with achieving economic freedom. What will happen in the next decade or 2 decades? Those that will come after us might not be as patient as we are. So it's everyone's interest to right now check themselves and say, how am I assisting in making sure that all these systematic barriers that were put up against black people are broken down in their entirety, and these people are given the exact chance that other people have been given throughout time.
Weirdly, as you just answered that question, as you unpacked for us, it rang true to something that the CIC of the Economic Freedom Fighters once said in a press conference. Similar sentiments, but delivered perhaps more brutally in honesty. that you are given an opportunity now by patient blackness to correct and to redress. But it will not be that way forever, because the frustrated people eventually must display their frustration in the way that is far more desperate and far more violent. And nobody wants to get to that point, but you're going to get to that point if you don't sit and listen to the issues presented that are centered around blackness and the black experience and the disenfranchisedness of blackness and so on and so forth. We're going to come back on the other side, and we're going to continue our conversation. It's just gone 1:30, and our WhatsApp lines are open on 061-410-4107.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines, the latest death toll from overnight flooding in the Durban metro following heavy rain stands at 6. This has been confirmed by the eThekwini municipality. The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein has reserved judgment in the appeal case by disgruntled ANC members challenging the legitimacy of the August 2022 Northwest Provincial Conference. And the M23 rebels say they are committed to a political solution as the conflict rages on in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. They blamed the main government in Kinshasa and its forces to reorganizing in preparation for a full-scale war. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, it's just gone 1:30. Ondela is going to be back with you at the top of the hour for that full news update. We are catching up with political economist and businessman, as well as social commentator Ungo Ndube is joining us. And he's walking us through an opinion piece that he wrote in the IOL, Raising Consciousness and Forging Unity Amongst Black South Africans, a Path to Collective Liberation. You say that another crucial aspect of raising consciousness in understanding the structural forces that perpetuate inequality and oppression. Let's talk about that.
It's very important for us to not only look at consciousness as an abstract form, in an abstract form, but also look at it as an everyday and intentional force that we need to apply in our daily lives. So this involves recognizing the role of capitalism, racism, patriarchy, colonialism, and all of that in shaping the lives of Black South Africans. Another thing that it involves is understanding the global context of Black oppression, because global oppression is not only localized; it's very much institutionalized in global dynamics, in global geopolitics, even in global cultural movements, where you find blackness being relegated to the fringes and only drawn out now and then when there's absolutely a brilliant black artist that can't be ignored. Then they become the centerpiece of a cultural, a global cultural village, whereas there are millions of other brilliant black artists that could also share in the spotlight the way other races get their share. So this understanding is very essential for developing strategies for ourselves as Black people to challenge these systems and create a more just and equitable society. So we need to really extrapolate every time the oppression of Black people and not look at it only as a localized phenomenon, but look at it as a global phenomenon that has different dynamics in all spheres of a black person's life. Because, as I say, it's very systematic. It's a global phenomenon, and it touches every part of our lives as well.
Now, understanding that it's very systematic and systemic both at the same time. When it comes to creating these systems for addressing the lack of consciousness amongst Black folks. I mean, you talk about taking our power back, and some of these elements can be done from an individual perspective, right? Your own self-awakening. But I would wonder if then it also requires a consciousness at the highest level of leadership. and a guidance that then trickles down and gets reinforced, and reinforced very strategically and very deliberately without apology for what the mission is towards this.
My thinking, Bridget, is that it needs a multifaceted approach. I think if you look in the context of South Africa, one would have thought that with our struggle history, when we attained political freedom in 1994, those that attained political power on our behalf, that controlled the levers of state, would have had at the forefront of their minds this consciousness, this awakening of black people, so that unity can, that momentum from 1994 can be translated into the next steps of our freedom, the economy, attaining economic freedom, etc. But that did not happen. So it boils down to us at grassroots levels to be able to forge this unity that's so needed for us to be able to move forward. If we are going to rely on political leaders, history has shown us in the last 30 years that they are very easily compromised. Look at how BE has been used by the economic elites to compromise those with political power in order for them to not awaken this consciousness you're talking about in black people, but to actually work against us and work for these economic elites through being compromised by BE shares and all of that. So we definitely cannot rely on politicians on this one. It's up to us at grassroots levels. It needs communities, it needs community organizations, it needs civil organizations to be able to forge this unity and transcend all these ethnic, linguistic, and cultural divisions and work in solidarity against for one common goal.
Yeah. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line, and 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. Let's jump to WhatsApp quickly, and then we'll come back and we'll get to you, Mike, in Middleburg.
This is Sipo from Durban. Just talking on the topic of the in-laws. For me, my wife was lucky because I was an...
There's no voice notes. Wrong voice note. Apologies for that. Mike in Middleburg, how are you?
I'm good. How's it, Bridget? And thanks for taking my call.
Go ahead.
Yes, Bridget, in his entire career, the late great Peter Tosh made his music to make us aware of the evils of capitalism, especially when it is escalated to its highest form, which is imperialism. And it is all about economic deprivation. It is all about exploitation. I cannot agree more with your guest, but I think if we can unite and really empower each other as Africans, as Comrade Peter Tosh has always emphasized in his song titled Never Gonna Give It Up, and also in other songs that he rendered. If we can really respond positively to his preachings, I think we can really go a long way. People like Trump and all other fascists will really not have us to worry, about anything, because Africa is the richest continent. Yes, we're the poorest, and it can all be attributed to the mismanagement of the economy. We are our worst enemies when it comes to management of the economy.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for your contribution. Michael out in PE, how's Gqeberha today?
It's a nice weather today.
Go ahead.
Yes, look, a quick one. Without 400 years of colonization and colonialism, it's not a joke, right? And I mean, if even your Messiah is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed person, yes, then that's how deep it is. So until we realize a certain Africanism in us, we're not even going to develop economically. Now, if you look at Burkina Faso and what Ibrahim Traore is doing there, he's doing it with the African consciousness. That's what's taking place there. But obviously, the media is not going to highlight that, because that's not the narrative that we want. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you very much, Michael. That was Michael MPE, a regular listener of the show, and we appreciate it. Let's go to that one at the bottom there. Mark, do you see that one? Yeah.
Thank you, Bridget. I agree with the speakers completely. You know, there needs to be more of a focus on consciousness. And what are we talking about, you know, there? I've heard many colleagues and intellectuals, public intellectuals, talking about the fact that the country still needs a cleansing. We're still moving out of the July unrest and the barbarity that we saw there. But not only in terms of a black consciousness, I often wonder where we are in South Africa in terms of a white society and in terms of what's going on with our consciousness, collective responsibility and accountability. We've all seen AfriForum continue. We've all seen what a grouping of the Afrikaners have been saying. Where is the white consciousness, and where do we find those collectives to move us forward?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that contribution. I'll hand it over to you, Ngo. Perhaps you can summarize for us some of the responses there as we wrap up the conversation.
Yes, Bridget. I think Mike from Middleburg is spot on. The cultural movement, especially that we see in the reggae music genre, is very crucial in raising that the consciousness we talk about. We need to be able to raise the specter when it comes to the cultural movement and listen to those creative artists and the path that they forged for us. The caller from Gqeberha, I think the Burkina Faso narrative, I really like that, because it's only when we are intentional and take decisions that defy the norms and defy the status quo that we are going to be able to make the difference. We are going to be able to instill confidence and pride in our people, where they will realize that we can actually do this if we move together as a unit. And I think the last caller raises a very important point. Remember earlier I spoke about other races becoming allies in this problem and becoming partners in changing the status quo in order for us to avoid any problems 10 years, 20 years down the line. And this is very important, that we need to locate white consciousness as well, but in a positive sense, not the negative whiteness that has been a part of the systematic and structural oppression of black people, but the positive whiteness that can be an ally in uplifting black people.
No, I think you've sparked an interesting conversation here, and it's an important time, I think, given the political discourse in the country right now, to also have this kind of dialogue. I appreciate the time with you today. That was Ngo Dube, who's a political economist and businessman, and that article is available on IOL. We're going to take a quick pause, and then we come back with John Thompson.
Psst, have you heard? This Friday, 28 February, something big is happening at Dis-Chem. For one day only, Benefit Card members get 30% off fragrances. Yes, your favorite brands. For him, for her, for you. But don't tell everyone. Or do. Just don't miss out. Shop in store or online this Friday at Dis-Chem. Better beauty starts here.
A convicted murderer on death row, a vicar in a quiet English town, and a maths teacher trapped in a cellar cross paths in the most unexpected way. Jefferson Grief is on death row in an American prison for brutally murdering his wife. But it turns out that Grief has a gift. He can solve crimes from inside his cell. English journalist Beth Davenport needs Grief's help. Janice, a woman who recently helped Beth, has gone missing. The last Beth heard from Janice? A text with a blurry image of a man lunging towards the camera. Will Grief crack the case in time? Exactly how is Janice's local vicar involved? And is it really possible to solve a crime before it is committed? Tune into Inside Man Monday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Starts 12 February only on S3. Open up.
The whispers in the morning as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady and you are my man.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We're catching up now with John Thompson, CEO of SA Trade Promotions and organizer and owner of the Organic and Natural Products Expo Africa 2025, and it's returning to Cape Town with record-breaking growth and a truly global reach. And we'll find out more about what's on show this expo season. How are you doing, John?
Thank you for giving us the airtime.
Are you good?
Yep, indeed.
Awesome, fabulous stuff. Let's talk about the Organic and Natural Products Expo firstly. For those of us who don't have context and background, share with us.
Okay, well, worldwide the interest in organic and natural products has been growing slowly, but it really accelerated after COVID, when everybody sort of was looking for alternative forms of medicine and skincare and all that type of thing, foods, natural stuff, and it's just been taking off. I mean, Cape Town we launched last year was very, very well attended, but this year it's doing even better. We've already got, so it's 5 weeks from the show, we've got 923 trade visitors registered, and we expect about 3,500 consumers to attend. It's a show that it speaks to both trade and consumers. And obviously one leads onto the other. And it's been going beautifully. We've just before your call came through, I just got a booking from a company in Morocco who's got skincare products. And then last week we had confirmation that there was a delegation coming from the Russian Organic Association. So we're really sort of spreading ourselves around the world.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like indeed you guys have gone quite global there with the offering. You speak about the fact that this has been a growing market, and what does that speak to exactly? Because I think when we talk to different stakeholders in different sectors, a lot of people will often say that consumers now are more enlightened, and consumers now really want to know the crux of where the product or the item comes from. There's a consciousness and around humanity and how our consumption affects things. Would you say that that kind of thinking has also sort of driven this appetite for more natural and organic products worldwide?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for instance, you can see most major retailers now have an organic and natural product section in their stores, and this wasn't the case a few years ago. And people, by investigating these different treatments and things, they're going back to traditional treatments that have been around for years, like the baobab and bushu and honeybush tea and devil's thorn and things like that. People are now realizing that there's actually a lot of mileage in them, which people were sort of poo-pooed at one stage when Boston came along.
Tell me this: are you seeing more, perhaps also traction, or I don't know? You'll enlighten us. Correct me if I'm wrong. You speak about things like baobab and let's just say rooibos, which is a South African thing, because it just jumped into my head. A lot of these sort of organic ingredients or organic key components oftentimes come from the continent. And are you seeing a lot of participation as well from folks outside of South Africa, but within the African continent? And what are consumers and traders actually interested in? Have you been able to track what are some of the top products or the top ingredients or the top productions that people are actually consuming and interested in?
Well, that's a long question because yes, we do have exhibitors from Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, and Swaziland. We've also got for our Johannesburg show, because we've got another show in October in Johannesburg, which is for international. We've got a big West African pavilion. So what they're interested in is first of all, the overseas people are interested in our indigenous African products. We had 223 overseas visitors last year, buyers.
Yeah.
And they're looking for stuff which is unique for the continent, which we've got a lot of, fortunately. And I know I'm going away from the question a little bit, but one of the exciting things that we're finding with this exhibition is that by utilizing these indigenous products, we can create the development of SMEs in rural areas that in turn create jobs. So it's a great knock-on effect. And we get people like some of our sponsors, like Standard Bank, who put up whole SME pavilions for these guys because they can't afford the whole thing on their own, and it's jump-starting business opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's wonderful. That's wonderful news, because that's what essentially you want, right? Especially when it comes to sort of niche industries or niche products. You want there to be that knock-on effect that ultimately affects the livelihood of the hands and feet that actually farm the actual ingredient.
Completely true, Bridget. And also what's nice about it is it's all coming from rural areas where the opportunities are limited.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting times also, I guess, for indigenous growers, small-scale farmers. We see a lot of sort of these people are leaning towards, especially if you're looking at particular sectors of product, whether you're looking at beauty or you're looking at skincare and home things. People like a niche something, we only manufacture 10,000 or we only produce 5,000 of something like that. And I would presume that it's interesting times for those kinds of businesses right now.
Well, it is. And, what's nice about this expo, it gives them an opportunity to get into the marketplace, which with limited funds is difficult to do. As an example, last year in Cape Town, the whole of the Pick and Pay product development unit came to visit us. And, they were finding stuff that they didn't know about, and our exhibitors were finding contacts that they couldn't find otherwise.
Wonderful. Listen, we look forward to great business to be had at the Organic and Natural Products Expo 2025. Just as we wrap it up, for folks that want to come through, I don't know if there's still time, with over 900 traders already registered, if there's still time for folks to sneak in their last-minute stands at the expo, or that opportunity is now closed.
No, we've still got a few opportunities for people to exhibit, and if they're in that marketplace, I think they'd do very well. But if I may, Bridget, we also run a portal, and everything operates through that portal. So if people want to buy tickets, if they want to register to exhibit or register to visit, they can go to organicandnaturalportal.com.
Organic and spelled fully, and natural portal.
Yeah. Organic and naturalportal.com.
Fabulous stuff. John Thompson, thank you for the time this afternoon. CEO of the SA Trade Promotions and, of course, the organizer behind the Organic and Natural Products Expo Africa 2025. And you can log on to organicandnaturalportal.com if you're interested perhaps in being an exhibitor in the space, or you just want to come through as a consumer or buyer, or you're just someone who just wants to spend a fabulous Saturday seeing what's on the market. It sounds like it's a good one to be in attendance. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll come back and we'll catch up with Grow Great.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
In the last few minutes before the top of the hour, we're going to quickly catch up with Dr. Edzani Mpapuli, who's the Executive Director at Grow Great. So the Union Against Hunger is a newly formed civil society movement, and they launched this morning with an event that brought together leading experts, activists and organizations to confront South Africa's hunger crisis head on. How are you doing this morning, Dr. Edzani?
Good afternoon, Bridget. I'm doing very well.
I'm doing great, thank you. Quickly, give us some context around the Union Against Hunger.
So, the Union
Oh, the line is
Hunger
failing. The line is failing us, Doc. No, the line is failing us, unfortunately. You're not audible at all. We're going to need to change the line, but also given the time, by the time it takes my team to change the line and get the doctor on a different, more stable line, it's going to probably be the top of the hour. So we'll see about, is she ready? We're going to try again, Dr. Edzani?
Good morning, Bridget. Can you hear me?
Yes, a little bit better, but we've fast run out of time. Give us some background on the Union Against Hunger.
The Union Against Hunger is an umbrella movement that really brings together many fragmented efforts to combat hunger and its devastating consequences, pulling together resources and coordinating efforts effectively. So really bringing action to the call to end hunger and saying we're tired of talking about this, we're tired of the injustice, we're tired of the slow violence of hunger against our people. We need to do something, but we can't do it as fragmented organizations. We actually do need a movement that brings us together to end hunger in South Africa.
Yeah. It also comes at an interesting time, right? Because it's a pivotal moment for South Africa right now as the lead in the G20 gatherings.
Absolutely. It is a very critical time. And considering that we've got the eradication of hunger there and equity on the agenda, we really need to start at home. I think the objectives are quite global on the G20 agenda, but we're really saying that we need to start at home. We need to end hunger at home. We need to regulate food prices at home in South Africa, because me and you know that it is unaffordable for even ourselves who are working, not much more about the poor.
Talk to us about the National Policy on Food and Nutrition Security, because that's currently under review. And what would you hope would sort of be incorporated or be the outcomes, once all the relevant stakeholders have been consulted?
We really want to see on the new strategy a real focus on solving access to food. Generally, it's
Dr. Edzani, the line really is failing us. It's a really terrible line. I think we'll have to halt it there, and perhaps we'll see if we can't revisit this conversation in the second half of the second hour of the show, because the connection really is failing us at the moment. I'm not too sure if the doctor is traveling. It does sometimes happen. Technology prevents us from at times having crisp, important and impactful conversations. But we'll see if we can't shift the doctor to the second half hour of the second hour of the show, so after 2:30, and maybe catch up with her in the final 10 minutes, because it is an important update with Grow Great. And from time to time we do actually catch up with Grow Great on this particular show and help magnify and intensify their messaging as well. The news is coming up in about a minute, but on the other side, 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. It is open for you to send through your voice notes for that conversation. It's Wednesdays, and Wednesdays, immediately after the news, we have our relationship corner. And today we're having a conversation around how toxic in-laws can destroy marriages. and how does one go about navigating this complex issue, because it is an emotive conversation, it is an emotive situation. If you find yourself in it, or you've been through it, you know that it can have dire results and a dire ending for you and your partner. 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line for you to send through those voice notes. You're more than welcome to be anonymous, because we also understand the sensitivity around family dynamics. So you can share, knowing that you can be private in the conversation. Ondela is standing by with the news, and on that note, essential cover from OUTsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. Simply SMS CAR to 43187 now.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 2. Death toll from floods in Durban stands at 6, and judgment reserved in ANC Northwest appeal. For SAFM News, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good day. The latest death toll from overnight flooding in the Durban metro following heavy rains stands at 6. This has been confirmed by the eThekwini municipality. The hardest hit areas were in the south of Durban metro and on the province's south coast. Roads, businesses and infrastructure have also been damaged. The city says about 280 affected families from Lemontville will be relocated. KwaZulu-Natal MEC for Cooperative Governance, Thulasizwe Buthelezi, and eThekwini Mayor Cyril are visiting the affected areas this afternoon. The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein has reserved judgment in the appeal case by disgruntled ANC members challenging the legitimacy of the August 2022 Northwest Provincial Conference. Nono Maloyi was elected as chairperson, Lezi Mahotsi as deputy chairperson. Nontsokolo Stemere reports.
The others that were elected were Solo Lehari as a treasurer, Luis Diremelo as a secretary, and Viola Mutsumi as deputy secretary. The 5 appellants, including Sello Mulifi and Leboga Midupi, wants the Supreme Court of Appeal to overturn the Mafikeng High Court's decision declaring the provincial conference unlawful. They claim that the interim provincial committee did not have the power to organize the conference, and EC did not renew its mandate to remain in office. Nontsokolo Stamer, SABC News.
The Deputy Minister of Higher Education and Training, Buti Manamela, is visiting the University of Limpopo and other institutions of higher learning in the province. The aim of the visit is to monitor the registration process and safety of students' accommodation. Manamela says there are plans to build more institutions of higher learning.
Students who come out of our schools begin to diversify into the entirety of the post-school education and training sector, and not only to look at universities. Finally, we're building 2 new universities, the University of Science Center and Technology, and also the University of Police, and there are plans to build 10 more TVET college campuses over the course of the 5 years. But importantly, we are encouraging universities to also expand their online footprint to accommodate more and more students.
The applicants challenging Parliament's rationality of designated impeached Judge Dr. John Hlophe to the Judicial Service Commission are asking the courts to revert back to a system similar to apartheid. This is according to Advocate Dalim Mpofu, representing the MK party in the Western Cape High Court. The court is hearing the challenge by applicants, the DA, Freedom Under Law and Corruption Watch, that Parliament acted irrationally by designating Hlophe, who is now the MK parliamentary leader, to the JSC. Hlophe was impeached following a guilty finding of gross misconduct. Mpofu says the court is being asked to revert to a situation where the minority rules.
So what is apartheid? Apartheid was the system where the views of the minority carry the day. That's what's called apartheid. That's what you are being asked to do here in this court. The views of the minority, which lost a vote in parliament, must carry the day.
The M23 rebels say they are committed to a political solution as the conflict rages on in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. They blamed the main government in Kinshasa and its forces of reorganizing in preparation for a full-scale war. The rebels say they have evidence of military build-up, including deployment of reinforcements and supply of equipment. Meanwhile, South Africa has repatriated its troops who were injured during a fierce battle with the rebels in the Eastern DRC. Kaile Kumalo has more.
The M23 rebels say despite the ongoing ceasefire, the Kinshasa regime led by President Felix Tshisekedi and his coalition forces continue to target civilians in eastern DRC. It says they've deployed drones and fighter jets against defenseless communities, but the government has not responded to these claims. Meanwhile, the International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan says he's worried about the current situation in the DRC. The ICC opened an investigation in 2023 of allegations of crimes against humanity committed in North Kivu. Kylie Kumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Recapping the top story, the latest death toll from overnight flooding in the Durban metro following heavy rains stands at 6. This has been confirmed by the eThekwini municipality. I am Mondela Mbana for SFM News Headlines at 2:30.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance. Essential. Get a quote today by simply SMSing car to 43187. 25-year-old Chanel loves Outsurance Essential because of its low-cost insurance designed for older cars. For her 2012 Hyundai i10 1.2, she only pays 458 rand a month. With Outsurance Essential, you get up to 1 million rand liability cover. That means you can, if you cause an accident, the other car could be covered for up to 1 million rand. Add even more value with the motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get savings with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rand. SMS car to 43187. That's car to 43187 today. Remember that Outsurance is a licensed FSP and T's and C's do apply.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It's fluidic, it's fluidic, it's fluidic, it's fluidic, it's fluidic. Yeah. Poetry, we're alright. I'm the closest and I'm alright. She's songstress and she's alright. What? Letting them know. Yo, I say what's up? What's up with you? You feeling good? We feel it too. We're gonna mess now, so with this groove. I step on one, you step on two. Now when we move, we're feeling the vibe, right? Said if we move, we're making a vibe, right? And if it's day or if it is night, we're feeling alright. So we be alright, alright. What? You let your body move, feeling it inside you, inside you. Let your body move. One more time, say you. Let your body move. I'm feeling it inside you. Cause we be what said we're poetry and we're alright. I'm the closest and I'm alright. She's songstress and she's alright. Letting them know this poetry. Alright. I'm the closest and I'm alright. She's songstress and she's alright. Letting them know this. I heard it's verse 2, so I'll bring it back again just to let you know exactly what is happening. I see you nodding your head like it's a Q-tip flick. Yo, you haven't heard a word about the flowetry. Flowicism, flowetry, it's fluidic. Once you have heard it, you have to get it. So you could sing it, or you could play it. You could play it, yeah, you could play it. You let your body move, feel it inside you. what's up. Mush, that's what's up. I said that's what's up. Yo, that's what's up. Yo, that's what's up. You get me, that's what's up. You get me, that's what's up. London, from SC5 to Philly's West Side, just to bring the vibe. And we're feeling alright. Said we doing alright. Said we doing alright. Said we doing alright. Yo, one more time, London, listen. From SC5 to Philly's West Side, just to bring the vibe. Now we be feeling alright. Said we be feeling alright. Yo, we feeling alright. We doing alright. Wow. Yo, you see, I'm getting it in. I said I'm getting it in. You see, I'm getting it in.
SAFM would like to thank everyone that submitted their entries for the playwriting competition. The announcement of the top 10 and winners of the competition will be announced on the 3rd of March 2025 on The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana. Stay tuned to SAFM and find out who is the lucky winner. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Alrighty, a little floetic there by Floetry, taking us back to the good old days. Well, not so old of the days. We are in the relationship corner right now, and we're going to be catching up with Unoktula Kakaza, who is a social worker specializing in family and individual therapy. So we know that there's that old saying that says, when you marry somebody, ultimately you marry their family too. And for some folks, this could be a really beautiful thing, right? Because it means an extension of love, support, and family. But for other folks, this could be a never-ending nightmare. And that's what we want to talk about today. Toxic in-laws. Folks that can wreak havoc in your marriage or in your relationship, turning what should be a sanctuary into a battleground, because it really is a tricky, very emotional situation when it comes to dealing with in-laws. And in-laws can be anybody. Can be a mother-in-law, can be a father, can be a rakhari. Because the rakharis can be problematic. Can be a rakhari, can be the siblings. It really can be anybody from the other side that is causing friction in your relationship. And it's often very tricky to know how to navigate these things without causing permanent injury. You want to assert yourself, but at the same time, you don't want to alienate your family. You don't want to offend your in-laws. You just don't want to cause a rift. And so hopefully this conversation will help us get better equipped emotionally as to how we navigate these landmines within our relationships. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. How are you doing this afternoon, Noktul?
I am doing very well, thank you. And how are you, Ruth?
I'm fantastic. Thank you very much. I must admit, rewind a couple of years ago when I was married, about 10 years ago, I lucked out in the in-law department.
Girl, you are not the only one. I can assure you that much.
No, listen, I had the best in-laws. I had the best rakhadis. I had the best sister-in-law. People who were really protective and nurturing and, just really understood that you are there to become the light lamaki of the family. You are not there to be othered, but you are there to be taken in as part and parcel of daughter of whatever. You're not a stranger. So
absolutely well said. Yeah.
But not the case for everybody.
True.
Yeah. What sort of, where do we begin with this conversation? Because, I mean, I feel like
it's very complex.
It's very complex, right? It is very complicated, but toxic in-laws and toxicity in those in-law relationships is a real thing, and a lot of people have to deal with it. But where does that even stem from? Are we able to even understand maybe what that is rooted in?
I think, yeah, we're diving in deep, I see. Thank you so much for having me onto your show. Brilliant show, by the way. So where does it start? Look, it starts with, understanding that family is the first family or the first community we ever come across. This is where we learn relationship, okay? We're learning our values, we're learning self-esteem, we're learning communication skills, we're learning how people in our lives influence and shape how we go on to interact with others outside of that home. Okay, so now if there's turmoil or discord in our parental relationships, what we call the father wound or a mother wound, deep stuff, but that's not where we are today. But when those kind of things exist, or sibling relationship dynamics, if those kind of things exist where there's constantly competition, there's lack of support, or there's constant isolation and segregation and ganging up on each other, you're going to see that trickle through as well when you join into that particular family. And overall, that tends to influence also our own attachment styles, and again, our ability or inability to effectively communicate or manage conflict within the home.
And that's the thing about these kinds of conversations, because I think we've not reached the point, and maybe it comes from our own lack of, as individuals, to also tap into the psychology of just humanity, that we take it from a superficial level. What you've just explained can only be understood by somebody who's gone through their own journey of psychological consciousness and who gets that mother wounds, parental wounds, sibling wounds have very little to do with you. You just become the person in the way. You become the next thing that I can target because you are a representation of either something that's lacking, missing, broken, yearned for, but it's not really about you per se.
In most instances, that is very true. I think the other side of which I want us to also have this conversation is our own responsibility and accountability of how we engage. Now, if we're on the topic of communication, the tone of delivery and engagement goes a long way.
Yeah.
You can tell someone, look, I don't think we see eye to eye and we can agree to disagree. Or you can throw curses and a couple of either, African Venek versions of that in the mix, and already you've got a different response altogether.
Yeah.
So one of the things we really underestimate is effective communication, and understanding that communication really is a skill. And again, depending on how we were brought up, respectively, as a couple in marriage, depending on how we were brought up and how we also navigate conflict and communication in our own relationship again as a couple, that's going to translate in terms of what family is aware of and what family gets an opportunity to play on. More than anything, I want us to understand that they interfere because you, the couple, allow it.
And very, very important indeed. One is trying to also multitask at the back of the show. Sometimes things get in the way. No stresses at all. That responsibility of how we engage, we often put the blame onto the doorsteps of our in-laws and say that we are reacting to their engagement. What does that say about ourselves? What does that say about Unotula and Bridget in the dynamics of that marriage or the dynamics of that relationship if you are incapable of raising a mirror to yourself and also questioning, well, how have I entered this environment and how do what energy do I bring to this and how do I change that? What does that say about us?
Okay, I want us to briefly touch on something called the drama triangle. So your audience and everyone can go Google it. It will be easier to understand from there for the sake of time, right? But the context of the drama triangle is something I've acquired and learned through coaching. I use a coaching element and a developmental aspect in my therapeutic approaches. But what it speaks to is understanding that how we engage, or when we engage in below the belt conversations, we will never move forward. So in a triangle, it's an upside down triangle. There's always a victim, there's always a judge, and there's always a hero. So there's always that person who usually very often I've seen, through the couples I've come across over the years.
Yeah.
There's always the one partner who wants to always, kind of cover the situation. Oh no, it's okay. Let's just brush it off. No, I'll handle it. And so the other party never really gets to have their say or learn how to have a say. One, right? So we're taking away from their ability to learn how to express, communicate, and resolve challenges on their own accord. Okay. Then we've got the victim, where it's me, poor me, nobody cares. They're against me. Nobody's on my side. Right. And the thing about that is it also becomes a mindset. It's called victim mentality.
Yeah.
Where you believe there is no other the reality than the one you're currently in. Now we're treading on the lines of divorce. We're not there yet, but it's about understanding that there is another way to navigate, manage this particular situation. And then the judge, the judge is the worst. These are those rakhadis you were talking about, those parents who are dominant. My son, my daughter, you will not. That kind of tone is very judgmental and leaves little room for the other person's intellectual capacity and their own emotional needs being met. Okay. So when we engage in communication or conflict from there, we are operating what we call below the line.
Yeah.
Therefore, no good will come from that. But when we open ourselves towards more of an approach of, okay, as a couple now, after the incident, after umcimbi or whatever function you were at, there was a tiff between the siblings and the family, whatever the case might be. When you're engaging as a couple, let's review the incident. What happened exactly?
Yeah.
This and that. Your mom told me I'm useless, for example. Your mom said I'm useless. Okay, so how did that affect you? Your mom saying I'm useless in front of everyone, etc. So, okay, it's about the people that were there. It's the feeling of disrespect, da-da-da-da-da. This is how your person is saying they experienced that conversation. So now, what could have been done differently? Right?
Yeah.
And you would find maybe what she was raising about the pots could have been a relevant point, but because of the tone, the location, and the manner in which it was raised, I heard nothing other than the fact that I'm a useless person and now I hate you. Because I remember that. I remember how my mom used to tell me that. I remember how my dad used to tell me that. Back into childhood traumas as well. Okay?
Yeah.
So this is what I mean when I'm referring to that whole communication aspect, about understanding the manner in which we reflect on these incidents. It's a great way of also teaching us how to better move forward. What happened? How did this affect me? What could have been handled differently? And what will we now do differently moving forward?
Very important and sage advice indeed from our guest, Nokuthula Kakaza. Let's take a quick pause here and we'll come back. 061-410-4107. We'll come back and jump into your WhatsApps.
It's 2025, aka 2020 Thrive. And from January to December, we're managing our expenses better, even in the month of love. Whatever personal expenses or aspirations you have, make them happen now with a Nedbank personal loan of up to 400,000 Rand and enjoy our best available interest rate.
Search Nedbank personal loans and show your goals some love. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. We're having a conversation around toxic in-laws and how those relationship dynamics can be navigated in order to avoid going down the dreaded D word, or even breakups if you're not married as yet. 061-410-4107. Let's go to WhatsApp.
Good day, this is Sipho from Durban. Just talking on the topic of the in-laws. For me, my wife was lucky because I was an orphan. I've never known my parents or my family. But her family has been kind to me, has been very good. In all the 12 years I've known her, they've always accepted me as family. But she's never had to deal with any in-laws. She's only deals with me. So we've been very lucky in that sense. Yeah.
Hello, Bridget. This is Jabu from George. My toxic in-law happens to be my father-in-law, who is so attached to his only daughter and his only child. So he's becoming toxic financially and and in my decision making with my wife. My wife at one point happens to go to work in the US, and when she comes back, he was at the forefront of asking about the finances and everything, and a lot of decisions. He wants to know, why did you make this decision? When are you going to do this? He's like the head of our marriage, and it's a very big problem with me because her daughter is the only child.
That also speaks to understanding boundaries, right, Noktula? And I don't know where you stand on that, because I almost feel like it's very important for boundaries to be drawn and asserted by the person. And I mean, essentially, we're both marrying into each other's families, but we talk from the perspective of women. When I marry a man, I expect him to assert boundaries and guidelines for his family. Uguti, this is how far you go with her. This is how far you go into our relationship. And then
I hear you, and you're absolutely right on that. And, you know, just pushing on from the first guy who mentioned that for him, lucky for her, I mean, you know, I call them unfortunate opportunities. It's unfortunate that it took, you know, him not having in-laws for her to have this great experience in that particular context. But it's also a great opportunity in that he himself now is learning how to experience family, and we absolutely love that and celebrate that for him. Versus the other gent who also shared then for him, there's an interference, right? And what happens is we really underestimate the influence that family has, or in this case, in-laws have within the relationship and the marriage. This can be positive or negative, and both these, both these listeners have actually shared those aspects. But just for clarity for everyone, when it comes to the positivity, it can be emotional support and guidance. I think you also gave an example of that when you were married.
Yeah.
Right? Can be family connection and that sense of belonging. It is about childcare support and assistance as well. So when you have that good element, things tend to flow a bit better, as opposed to the negative side, where the role models are not great. Okay?
Yeah.
They are modeling an unhealthy dynamic to you as a couple, because remember, in a marital context with Abazali, we're young. We will forever be the children. Therefore, we are mimicking or trying to learn through what we have witnessed from childhood into adolescence, into young adulthood, into adulthood. And the negativity is that interference, where they are now becoming the dictators or the decision makers in the home. There's favoritism, which leads to resentment to the person who's experiencing this. There's those critical comments. You're not enough. It's not enough. I should then decide what happens with my daughter, and unrealistic demands and expectations. The biggest thing I have come to find when I have intervened with a couple in this is often couples tend to come individually and not necessarily together.
Yeah.
All right. So I meet Bridget because Bridget is having a marital challenge and she's on her way out the door. And she just wants to be sure for herself, is she being impulsive? Is she being irrational? What's going on? And what you find is that more than anything, Bridget has not learned how to communicate and express her needs to Utuli. And so Utuli never fully comprehends the magnitude of what their parent is doing because they grew up under it and are not aware. This is where now external intervention comes in handy. Talking to professional counsel. There are marriage counselors specifically, Christian, non-Christian. Then there are relationship counselors which kick in, or couples counselors, which is where I fall through, right? And the thing about that is a marriage is a constitution in itself, but as a couple, you need to have your own dynamic and decide your own values together. This is where those boundaries start to kick in.
Oh, absolutely. I think we'll leave it there on that cliffhanger for today because we've fast run out of time. But we appreciate your input, your professional wisdom on this. And when that gentleman also said that at least his wife is lucky that she didn't have in-laws, I thought, well, I guess that situation is bittersweet because as that saying goes, good in-laws are dead in-laws. But at the same time, when but when you have healthy in-laws, like you've said, you have, a reservoir of wisdom and nurturing and guidance and, you know, a different perspective to cool both of you down. So it just depends on how healthy or unhealthy your situation is. Nogutula Kakaza, thank you so much for your time. And Nogutula is a social worker, and she specializes in family and individual therapy. It's 2:30 on Dela standing by with the headline news. And then on the other side of that, we're going to get into Kids Corner.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines, ANC spokesperson Mahlengi Bengu Mutsiri has denied reports that the reconfiguration embarked on by the organization in Gauteng is imposing the newly appointed provincial task team on some branches in the province. The latest death toll from overnight flooding in the Durban metro following heavy rains stands at 6. This has been confirmed by the eThekwini municipality, and the energy giant BP is to slash its renewable energy investments to instead focus on increasing oil and gas production. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
SABC Education, in partnership with the Department of Health and Dilipa Labantwana, bring you episode 13 of the Side by Side drama season 4, focused on mom's mental health.
Say and say, side by side.
Singama Africa Kenya you Tina Singama Africa Kenya you Tina Singama Africa Kenya you Tina.
There you go, my baby. Just eat the last of your mashed butternut and we'll be all done. We can't afford to have your stomach upset again. Nespiliswa couldn't find what caused it, and it was not teething. But I am not taking any chances with you, my baby. Look who's calling. It's your dada. Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm fine. I am just calling to find out how my little angel is doing. How are you, little girl? Is Dada's girl feeling better now? Yes, Dada. Was very worried. You must tell Mama to give you the right food, not the bad. Aye, man. I don't want any bad stuff anymore.
But we don't know what caused her upset stomach. It could have been anything.
Probably. But you really must be more careful, Kanya. I'm going to send you a list of ingredients that you must get for a weekly menu for Amanda. I'll transfer the money also. Dada's got to go now. Love you, my angel. Have you been taking your ARVs, Kanya?
I have.
Good. I've got to leave for work now. Let me know when you get the money.
Bye, Anele. We miss you and love you so much.
Bye.
Even your father thinks it's my fault. Oh, maybe he's right. Maybe I'm a failure.
Kanya, it's Joyce.
Oh, I can't let her see me like this. I need to clean up my face.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Are you sure, Kanya? Were you crying?
No, I was just busy with onions.
But there are no onions.
Joyce, I'm useless. I can't seem to do anything right. I think I'm a bad mother.
Oh, no, Kanya, you're not.
Even Anele thinks so.
Well, Anele is wrong. Actually, you're coming with me this afternoon.
Where to?
The support group. And I'm not taking no for an answer.
Come inside.
You asked to see me, Mr. Yanti.
Please, sit down, Mr. Makwete. There are rumors making the rounds about your involvement with the school people. A 7th grader.
Pure lies. Those are lies.
So, there's no truth to these rumors.
Of course not, sir. Why would I be involved with the people? I can get any woman I want.
Yes, I'm sure you can.
Someone is spreading those lies about me because they are jealous. It's probably one of my ex-girlfriends.
Then make sure they stop, because it can cause damage to the school's name. I have worked very hard, Mr. Makwete, very hard indeed, to lift this school from the state that it was in a few years ago. And as the principal of this school, I won't have some gossip destroy the work I did. Do you understand me, Mr. Makwete?
Yes, sir.
Make sure these rumors disappear.
I understand, sir.
I'm nervous, Joyce. I don't want to speak, Mna.
I don't expect you to speak, Kanya, and neither does anyone else here. I brought you here because I want you to listen to what the other people have to say.
Hi, my name is Refilwe. I struggled with depression after the birth of my son. It was a very difficult time for me. It felt like everything I did was wrong. Like I made a huge mistake having this child, because everything I did or what people said reminded me that I am not worthy of being a mother.
I didn't know there were people who felt the same way here, Joyce. Shh, listen.
I barely managed. As a single mother, we all know the struggle. Trying to juggle work and looking after your baby.
Yes.
Then COVID struck as well. It brought its own challenges. I fell into a deep state of depression after I couldn't work during the lockdown. The pandemic and the lockdown affected everyone. There were times I wasn't sure where the next meal was going to come from. But then I discovered this group on social media. I learned to get to know each and every one of you over the years. Your messages and your words of encouragement are what was kept me going. Talking about my feelings has made me healthier. And I just want to encourage any new mothers here to talk to a healthcare worker or a friend or family member. Mental distress is not your fault, and there are people who care. Thank you.
Wow, that was inspiring. Thank you for bringing me here, Joyce.
You're welcome, Kanya.
I think I'm going to speak to Refilo for a while, if that's okay.
That's wonderful.
Before we end today's drama episode, it's competition time. Side by Side is continuing to give away a cash prize of 1,000 Rand on our last episode of the month. To stand a chance of winning, leave your name and number on our social media direct messages using the handle @SAFM Radio. All you have to do is answer one easy question. For more information, visit Side by Side social media platforms at Side by Side SA. Today's lucky listener is Twaika Mandla. Let's give her a call.
Hello.
I'm calling you from the Side by Side team at SAFM.
Yes.
And I believe you have been listening to Side by Side ever since it started on SAFM.
Yes, I do listen a lot.
So I've got a question for you. If you get it right,
Yes.
you win yourself 1,000 Rand. And if you don't, unfortunately, we're going to have to move to the next listener.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Now I'm going to try my level best.
All right. So your question for today is, what are some common signs of postpartum depression?
Okay. I would say losing interest in things that you love, things that you used to do. I would say also the losing of concentration. So I would say those are one of the two symptoms that I would mention.
Kwaika, I've got some good news. You just won yourself 1,000 rand.
Oh, wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
If you'd also like to win yourself 1,000 rand like Kwaika, continue listening to Side by Side every Wednesdays and Thursday right here on SAFM.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Yeah, that was Kids Corner. Just taking us just a few minutes after 20 to 3 o'clock. The time is moving fast, as rightfully it should as well, because can you believe this? I've been working with this team for what now? Three seasons almost, and this year they completely forgot my birthday. They just remembered 30 seconds ago. 30 seconds ago, they just remembered that it's my birthday. And now they like all blushy, because they know I'm that person on my birthday. You know, I want chocolates. I want the whole shebang bang. If I had the power, I would make it a public holiday. And luckily for them, I'm actually just very, very tired from yesterday's travels, which is why even I didn't put very much of an emphasis on my birthday this year. But if you're born today, a happy birthday to us. I hope that you have a brilliant year ahead, filled with all the blessings and all the wonders that your heart desires. Oh, it's so beautiful to be a Piscean, especially a February one. We don't know about those March people. Right now, we are catching up with Cameron Kasambala, who's the community manager for Women for Change, and we're talking e-hailing safety concerns for women. So e-hailing services like Uber and Bolt, we know that they've obviously revolutionized and transformed, urban mobility. They've given us a sense of convenience and accessibility, right? But there's some real legitimate safety concerns around these e-hailing services, particularly for women. And these have become a growing issue in the country. And we see it's easy for us to chat on social media because a lot of us are on these social media platforms. We have instant engagement and instant communication. And so we see when incidents happen in real time, and primarily it's incidences that are happening against women users of these platforms. And very recently, Anele Mdoda had her own alarming encounter with an Uber driver, where the story goes, from what we understand on social media, she had chosen the option to not talk to the e-hailing driver, which is an option that is provided by Uber, where you can opt to have a conversation, or you can choose that you want to ride in silence. And the driver didn't take that very, very well. He made sure that she knew his thoughts and shared with her sentiments around the lines of, thinking that Ungono and his country, women know their place, and this is how women find themselves in trouble, and sentiments along that line. Anyway, Uber is on that case, and they've made contact with her to investigate that case. But we thought we'd use that as a jump-off conversation for what should be a very important conversation around these services. How are you doing, Cameron? You good?
I'm doing well. Thank you. I've just come back from university, so a little bit tired, but I'm really excited to have this conversation because it's so important that we talk about this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time, because it is services of convenience and it is services that are meant to be safe. But more and more, it seems as if we have these incidents where women feel unsafe using these e-hailing providers. And there seems to be no real willingness to address the safety concerns. What would you say sort of well, what would you say that speaks to and what that communicates to consumers?
I think you're so right. This has been such a helpful service because it really is accessible to anyone. It's very convenient. But I think the reality, and often is the case with big companies, there's so much noise happening, especially these global companies, that they're not listening very well to the people on the ground who are experiencing these things. And with Anele Mdora being such a public figure, I think it brought so much attention again to the issue. But unfortunately, this is an issue that women face every single day. We have so many cases that come in of horrific stories that women have experienced with these drivers.
Yeah. And in fact, you guys ran a survey, right? Women for Change. You ran a survey and you found that 73% of users felt unsafe using e-hailing services, with cases of harassment and abuse on the rise. And I'd venture to say that from that 73%, the majority were women.
Unfortunately, it is. I think the reality of the gender-based violence that happens in South Africa is so rooted anti-women that it's always the women who predominantly are affected by these issues and who are also ignored because people aren't paying attention to how serious of an issue it is. And I mean, many women, even my own personal experience, have experienced some kind of harassment or unwanted advances or even really, aggressive attacks. And it's jarring for us, and it was really appalling to see that story come up. But like I said, I mean, we have so many stories that we've spoken about where people have been sexually assaulted, where people have been almost kidnapped, and these are women who are coming out and saying these horrible things have happened to them, where their lives have been threatened. And it just continues to be ignored, but it is mostly women, and that's why a lot of our precautions are targeted towards women because we're the most affected.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think that, this incident of an e-hailing driver making statements like, in my country, we would rape you to teach you a lesson because you don't want to speak. You've chosen the option not to speak, is what we would call, air quotes, a better scenario, because we have seen instances where women literally have gone to social media depicting their physical bodies that were beaten by e-hailing drivers. When you're supposed to feel safe calling an e-hailing service at 11 p.m. coming from wherever you're coming because it can be traced, you're not getting into some random transportation. It should be verified. The driver should be somebody that, the company has verified that they've given accreditation to.
Exactly.
And yet we see more and more that that's not the case for users of e-hailing services.
It's, again, as an organization, it is so heartbreaking how many stories happen. And as you said, the fact that this story is not the worst story. And so you almost want to say, okay, well, it wasn't that bad. But that's the problem. It shouldn't get to that point where we have to say, at least it wasn't that bad. It shouldn't be worse than that. It shouldn't even be happening. Irrespective of opinions of drivers about what we do, it's irrelevant for you to make a comment like that. That is a horrific thing to say. And these unwanted comments happen all the time. The drivers saying they want to marry you, saying they want to make you have kids. It's just disgusting language. And that's why we need to be so quick to respond. And like I said, Anele being such a public figure is what drew this attention to it. It's what made this so prominent. But even now, as a public figure, she's receiving backlash for what she said, for coming out about this issue. And again, we're reminded how women are always being blamed, how we are always the problem and everything is our responsibility. And we're not holding these people accountable to the issues that they're creating. We're not calling these people out. The police are not rushing to help these women who are posting these pictures and videos of what's happening to them. They're not helping.
And what kind of intervention should be taken, Cameron? Because the other thing is, it seems as though even the e-hailing services, I don't even know who's the holding parental company for Uber. I don't even know where their offices are in South Africa. Where do you begin to physically go hold them accountable for their drivers and the lack of standards and verification and accreditation? Because there's obviously a ball that's being dropped there by them as well.
It's one of the reasons we always recommend victims and survivors to reach out to us is because we do emphasize the importance, and we have connections where we can help connect them to the right people and bring attention to their issues. It's a lot harder as a citizen, just day-to-day life, to reach these big corporations. They're not listening. They're doing their global things, making sure that they're getting stuff done on the big levels, and they're not necessarily hearing the individual stories. So we prioritize making sure that when people come to us, we hear them and we connect them to the right people, but we also try and stay in communication with these different e-hailing services to understand their safety features that they have. For example, in Ubers, there's supposed to be a feature where they record the trip so that you can hear what's happening within the trip, which is a great safety mechanism, because obviously in these situations, it becomes hearsay if you didn't record it. So now there's evidence of what happened, and they have tracking features. They have, you can add PIN codes to have them request so that a driver has to have your code before you can get in the trip. But again, a lot of the responsibility ends up falling on women and us having to find our own protective measures. And I really want to emphasize that irrespective of whether a woman did all these measures or not, it was not their fault. They cannot be blamed for someone else's disgusting behavior. That is never anyone's fault. But we do have some tips on what we can do to keep them safe to the best of our ability.
Yeah. And let's talk about those tips, right? Because again, the emphasis is these services are supposed to be the better alternative. You know, your parent, if you're a parent of a varsity going child, boy or girl, you feel a lot better when they say, I'm going to Uber. But these days, you know, even our parents, I mean, my mom has to be in a desperate situation in order for her to call me and say, send an Uber for me for the airport, even at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. The trust deficit there has been eroded completely.
I think the lack of response from the organizations definitely is what creates that mistrust, because often the statement is, we're investigating. And it's not enough affirmation that we can trust that, okay, we're going to be taken care of. And so the fear does just escalate. And the more these stories come out, the worse it gets. And I think I Uber all the time. And I don't have my driver's license, so I predominantly Uber places. And I'm lucky that I've had really good trips, but I've had terrifying trips where I've had to call my dad and be like, can you be on the phone with me, please, while I'm going on this trip? Or call my partner, just call somebody to witness my trip because I felt unsafe.
Yeah.
And that's one of the tips we recommend, is having someone you can call or sending your live location to someone you trust and that can pay attention, because having someone else witness that trip might intimidate people into being a lot more cautious, because now it's not just you and them. It's you and this third party that can get them help. So that's something we recommend, definitely, sharing your trip with someone that you trust.
Yeah.
We also recommend, if you can, there's a couple of tricks we do with the cars, from checking your license, the license plate, and making sure it's the right license plate, and checking that the picture matches the actual driver. I know it's things that we do, but it's a good reminder to just double check, because sometimes you are rushing. These things happen. You're going to go, you're getting home, you saw some of the numbers on the license plate, you're like, that looks familiar. But for our own safety, we really do need to be double checking these things, because small things can happen and we can get tricked. And again, we don't blame the victims, but it's a good thing for us to take that precaution to really look out for those small details. Even something that I do, I sit behind the driver. I don't sit on the side. I don't sit in the front, because when you're behind the driver, if they did try to reach for you, it's a lot harder than if you sat diagonal from them. So sitting behind the driver can be really safe. And something else I do is I do check the child lock feature, because you don't know until you're kind of in the car. But something I pretend to do is have something stuck. Say my jacket got stuck, my bag is stuck, and try and open that door to see for myself. Can I open the door from the inside? Because it's also something to be mindful of. But you can see there's so many steps you have to take that it's almost like it's not fair.
Yeah.
It's very unfair that we have to keep all these things in mind. But I also want to recommend it, because unfortunately there are these people who will do these things and who will test the boundaries and who will push to see what they can get away with. So these tips do help to some extent.
Absolutely. I've never really thought about the child lock situation and the sitting behind the driver. And I know that, in the middle of the night at times, depending where, I'm a very rare Uber user, but where I'm Ubering from, I would actually ask the Uber driver to open their boot. Because there were stories a couple of years ago of, them carting friends in the boot, and then we heard some horror stories of near kidnappings and things like that.
Yes.
But these are all really good tips. Sharing the trip, I think, should be just standard for everybody at the moment.
Yeah.
And when you talk about calling your dad and having someone to call, I remember a couple of years ago, my friend broadcaster Andile Ngube happened to be on the phone with me in the middle of the night. We were coming back from an event, and he was driving home, I was driving home, and we were just catching up.
Mm-hmm.
And I got stopped by, JMPD. And there used to be rogue JMPD pretending people on the road all the time. And he got me onto that tip. And he was like, stay on the phone with me. They must know that you are on the phone with somebody. And when they stop you, immediately say where you are. Like, say it out loud on the phone so that I can hear, I'm at the corner of this and this. And I will respond so that they know someone's on the phone with you.
And it's horrible because, again, having to constantly deal with that creates such a state of anxiety. And I think people underestimate the fact that even when you're not in the situation and nothing bad's happening, that anxiety is so damaging for your physical health, for your mental health. You're constantly on edge. And it's not a good experience. And that's why we're so overly cautious and why we're constantly, like, as an organization, speaking up about this, because it is not a good feeling to fear that you will not make it home or to the venue that you're trying to get to, because someone might take a chance, and this might be the day that you meet someone who is willing to do it.
Absolutely.
And that's terrifying.
Absolutely. Is there a resource for folks that have been, outside of yourselves, Women for Change, but for folks that have experienced, incidences of either some form of abuse, whether it be sexual abuse during a trip, whether it be harassment or verbal abuse, where they can go outside of reporting to Uber? And that they can go and report this so that as a collective, that data is then stored and is able to be presented to the holding companies to say, well, these are the stats. This is what's happening.
I'm so sad to say that really isn't a prominent thing. The reason we did so many surveys ourselves is because there's such a lack of support in that regard. And yes, I'm sure these organizations, they take these reports, they see them, and we put them to the police because that's who's supposed to help you, sending these reports to the police. But it's very hard to recommend someone to report it to, because there's not that many people that are listening. And we do have organizations that we refer people to in the case they're in dangerous situations. But for e-hailing specifically, it really is reporting into the company, Uber, Bolt, whichever one it is, sharing it with us and seeing how we can connect you, because we might have connections to other organizations that might be able to help you, or we ourselves can help you maybe reach out with SAPs and how you can be supported legally, because we do have some connections with lawyers that might be able to provide free legal advice so that they can help you figure out what's next. But unfortunately, it is a chasing game, and with the justice system and these global corporations, you're playing a very long game.
Yeah.
It's not something that's going to be sorted out instantly. It can take such a long time to get this justice.
Absolutely.
And that's very frustrating, but it is the reality of what we're dealing with.
Yeah. Cameron Kasambala, thank you so much for your time. And Cameron is the community manager of Women for Change, talking about e-hailing safety concerns for women in South Africa. That is where we leave the show today. Thank you so much for choosing to be in conversation with us. We'll see you tomorrow, inshallah, God willing. And if you are celebrating your birthday today alongside with me, hey, let's go and have a party.
Hi, this is Bridget. What a wonderful day for you and your family and your team there. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. We love you so much. Thank you for a beautiful show and keep being a blessing to us and informing us. We love you and God bless you. Gwena.
Hi, I was Bridget. It's Rendani here from Polokwane. I was actually wanting to wish you a happy birthday. You are sharing a birthday with my brother and sister Muraro and Kenti, my wife. Happy birthday, guys. But I'm no longer wishing you because you said you don't care about those people very much. And I'm also born in March, so no. Happy birthday.
Okay. I care about the March people. I'm sorry, March people. Happy birthday to y'all too.
Top stories at 3. ANC denies reports of imposing on Gauteng branches, and overnight flooding in eThekwini kills 6 people. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good afternoon. ANC spokesperson Mahlengi Bengu Mutsiri has denied reports that the reconfiguration embarked on by the organization in Gauteng is imposing the newly appointed provincial task team on some branches in the province. Bengu Mutsiri's comments come as Party Secretary General Fikile Mbalula is set to inaugurate the newly configured provincial task team, which will replace the Provincial Executive Committee. Speaking to the media in Midrand, Johannesburg today, Bengu Mutsiri says the reconfiguration was not imposed on party member, but it is in line with the ANC constitution.
So let me start off by saying that, like any other democratic organization, the ANC is guided by its constitution. Anything that is done at the level at which it is being done, such as this one, is according to the dictates of the constitution, Rule 12, read with subsection 1, 2, and 3,